Don't go there, Mo. Don't go there. Erase, erase, erase.
Hi guys, so good morning and welcome back. Good afternoon. It's noon time, 12:05 in the afternoon, and I'm just gonna say that something happened. So, um I I didn't know. I skipped 2 pages. So, I have to go back now. Taray, pwede pala 'yon, binabalikan. So, we have to go back, guys. Ano lang naman siya, dalawang page. Page 262 and 263. I cannot proceed. Like, may parang OCD tayo. So, hindi ako makapag-proceed unless we were able to finish this part. Tapos, I'm going to film again para nasa consecutive order na tayo. Nasa ascending order. Tama ba? Basta, guys, we're in the present times and it's doing according to my will. Okay? So, just have to read these pages para, uh, hindi ko na i-delete yung previous 2 videos ko. Sumunod na lang kayo sa akin kasi may nakalagay naman na pages doon, okay? Then, the next video that I'm going to film is yung tama na. Okay? For the date and for the day, for the time, and for the peace and order of my YouTube channel. Okay, so let's start. The roots of masterly intuition. For nearly all animals, speed is the critical factor in survival. A few seconds can spell the difference between avoiding a predator or meeting death. And for the purpose of such speed, organisms have evolved elaborate instincts. An instinctual response is immediate and is generally triggered by certain stimuli. Sometimes, organisms possess instincts that are so finely calibrated to circumstances that they seem to have uncanny abilities. Take, for instance, the Ammophila wasp. With incredible speed, the female Ammophila is able to sting her various victims, like spiders, beetles, caterpillars, in precisely the right place to paralyze but not kill them. Into the paralyzed flesh, she lays her eggs, providing her larva with fresh meat to feast upon for several days. In each of these victims, the stinging points are different. For instance, with the caterpillar, she must hit at 3 separate points to paralyze the entire creature. Before it is such a delicate operation, sometimes the Ammophila misses and kills the victim, but generally, her success rate is high enough to ensure the survival of her offspring. In this process, there is no time for calculating the kind of victim and exact spot to hit. It is instant, as if the wasp has a feel for the nerve centers of her various victims and can sense them from the inside. Our primitive ancestors had their own sets of instincts, many of which remain buried within us to this day. But as these ancestors slowly developed reasoning powers, they had to detach themselves from their immediate circumstances and depend less on instinct. To notice behavior patterns in the animals they were attacking, they had to connect them to other actions that were immediately apparent. They had to make similar calculations when it came to locating food sources or to navigating the long distances they traveled on foot. With this ability to detach themselves from the environment and see patterns, they gained tremendous mental powers, but this development also represented a great danger. Increasing amounts of information for the brain to process and consequent loss of speed in reacting to events. Such slowness could have spelled doom for us as a species if not for compensatory power that the human brain developed. Years of tracking particular animals and observing their surroundings gave our ancestors a feel for their environment in all of its complexity. Knowing the behavior patterns of various animals, they could anticipate where predators might strike and sense where prey might lie. They came to know so well the long distance they traveled that they could negotiate these spaces quickly and effectively without having to calculate. Okay? In other words, they develop a primitive form of intuition through continual experience and practice. Our ancestors covered some of the immediacy and speed they had lost. They could respond intuitively instead of instinctually. On this level, intuition was more powerful than instinct in that it was not tied to very specific circumstances or stimuli, but could be applied to a much wider arena of action. These ancestors' brains were not yet burdened by all of the information that comes through language or the complexities of living in large groups. Interacting so directly with their environment, they could develop an intuitive feel over the course of a handful of years. But for us, living in a much more complex environment, this process can take 15 to 20 years. Our high level intuition, however, has its roots firmly in the primitive version. Okay lang kayo, guys. Take a deep breath. Okay, sa mga susunod, guys, I'll try to frame other article muna kasi we need a break from this book. So intuition, primitive or high level, is essentially driven by memory. When we take an information of any kind, we store it in mnemonic networks in the brain. The stability and durability of these networks depends on repetition, intensity of experience, and how deeply we pay attention. If we are half listening to a vocabulary lesson in a foreign language, we are not likely to retain it on any level. But if we are in country where the language is spoken, we will hear the same words repeated in context. We will tend to pay deeper attention because we need to. And the memory trace will be that much more stable. Okay, so na-experience ko to when I was living in Pangasinan. So I stayed there for maybe 3 months, 6 months. I can't remember. But siguro 3 months straight. So they have different language, local language. They have their local language of their own, and you really have to pay attention kasi sometimes diba, it's so annoying when they're laughing all together and you just can't relate. Diba? So yun, I've learned a few words, but it's been a long time ago. Siguro it's been a decade ago or more than. So ang tagal lang, guys. So ayan, nakwento ko lang. So according to the model developed by the psychologist Kenneth Bowers, whenever we encounter a problem, a phase we need to recognize, a word or phrase we need to recall, mnemonic networks within the brain become activated as the search for the answer is guided along certain pathways. All of this occur below the level of consciousness. When a particular network is sufficiently activated, we suddenly become conscious of a possible name for the phase or a phrase that might be appropriate. These are low-level forms of intuition that come to us in our everyday life. We cannot reconstruct the steps that went into recognizing a person's face and remembering their name. Yan. People spend years studying a particular subject or field, develop so many of these memory networks and pathways that their brains are constantly searching for and discovering connections between various pieces of information. When confronted with a high-level problem, the search goes in 100 directions below conscious awareness, guided by the intuitive sense of where the answers might lie. All kinds of networks become activated, ideas and solutions suddenly rising to the surface. Those that seem particularly fruitful and appropriate stick in the memory and are acted upon. Instead of having to reason and answer through a step-by-step process, the answer comes to consciousness with a feeling of immediacy. Ayan, guys. So, natapos na natin yung na-skip natin na pages. Please pay attention to my channel. Baka sabihin nyo, hindi yan tama. Touch move, guys. I cannot delete what I have been posting. Okay? Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for helping me make this world a better place for all of us and for the future generations. Siguro inaantok na ako kagabi, which is, inaantok na talaga ako. You know, again, marami akong ginagawa. So, ayan. I'll see you in a bit.